And hi, welcome back Key Stage 4, looking at the higher topics and the skills based in it. So this is week 4, and this week we are looking at applying fractions. First thing I want to look at is just our understanding of what a fraction is. So if we see a fraction, for instance, like this is just representing a number. As the numerator is smaller than the denominator, it is representing a number that is less than 1. So this would always be less than 1 if the numerator is smaller than the denominator. That's something to think when working out. If you want the numerical value of a fraction, it's just 5 divided by 8. Right? So whenever we see a fraction, we know it is actually just an operation. It's a division going on, and we can use some rules for division to kind of manipulate and work with fractions. I often like to leave a decimal as a fraction because I find the calculations easier and there's less chance of mistakes. So I would always leave a value as a fraction until kind of the end of a problem, and then if it wants decimal place or significant figures, convert it right at the end. Okay, so fractions are going to come up all over the place. You're going to see them in probability, where it represents the chance of something. You're going to see it in gradient, where it's your rise over your run. It's a division to get the gradient, but it's sometimes easier represented as a fraction because it shows you kind of your x and your y axis. So your gradient is your rise divided by your run. And then we can look at fractions when they're not representing a number, but they're also telling us they're representing a proportion of a number. So for instance, I could be asked to find these 5/8 again of, I don't know, let's say 48. Now this is telling us I want a part or a percentage. We could represent this as 62.5, or we can leave it as this, and what it's saying is split this into 8 parts, which is 6, and find 5 of them, which is 30. And this can apply also to if we're looking at the same thing, so the fraction of, let's just say 64x minus 32. Again, what it wants is this 8 parts of this, which would be 8x and 4, and 5 of those. So if this is 8x times 5, 8 times 5, 40x minus 4 times 5, 20. So we can find the fraction of an amount, we can also find the fraction of an equation, we can find the fraction of anything because it's representing a percentage or proportion of a total. Okay, so what happens when the numbers are larger than 1? Well, what we can have here is we could have something when the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So we could have something like 12 over 5. This is representing a number larger than 1. And what we're saying is we're working in fifths. 5 parts make a whole. So I have 5, 10, I have 2 wholes, and 2 remainder. Okay, so we should remember that, we should know that. It's just a quick recap. And again, if we were looking at the other way around, so let's say we had 3 1/3, what we know here is we're working in thirds, so we have 3, 6, 9, 10 thirds. Okay, so that's just a recap of fractions and kind of how to convert between mixed and non-mixed, and what fraction amount needs and when we apply and use fractions. So the next thing I really want to look at is kind of the addition and subtraction, but we're going to look at it mainly for algebraic fractions. So we'll start off with something like this. If I wanted to add or subtract 2 fractions, I need them to represent the same amount. So that doesn't mean it has to have the same value, it means it needs to be divided into the same amount of parts. So this is in fifths and this is in quarters. What I would do here is I would find the lowest common multiple of 4 and 5, which is 20. I times all of this side by 4 and all of this side by 5 to get 8 20ths plus 15 20ths to give me 23 20ths. Now, this is going to apply to algebraic fractions exactly the same. The key that we need is a common denominator. As soon as we have a common denominator, it's not going to matter if I'm working with algebraic fractions, I'm working with normal fractions, whatever I'm looking at fraction-wise, if I've got the same denominator, my same rules apply, and that's what the main idea of this unit is, to think that, well, if you know your 4 operations around normal fractions, like numerical fractions, then when it becomes algebraic, we're applying exactly the same skills. So we could have something like this, and we have the same problem again, non-common denominator. The lowest common multiple is 12, so times this by 4, I end up with 4x over 12 plus times this by 3. Now the denominator is the same, these have the same unit, so I can get. So when it's an algebraic fraction, we're doing exactly the same thing. We don't need to change anything, we don't need to solve anything unless it's asking us to solve. And as you saw Mr. Prowse in the last unit with rearranging, we can solve when it's an algebraic fraction. So we've got those there, and it's just a common denominator each time. If I had something like this, if I had 3 over x plus 4 over y, what I want here is the same value. I can't find a common denominator between x and y, so I'm going to multiply them together. So we're going to with 3y over xy plus 4x over xy, and that will just give me, I can't change these at top, so 3y plus 4x over xy. I can't simplify as we'll look at in a sec because both of these terms don't both contain x and y. Alright, so that's addition and subtraction, and multiplication and division quite similar again, so as long as you know the skill originally. For multiplication we just multiply across, so if it was 2 over 5 times 3 over 4, again this is just a recap, 2 times 3 is 6, 5 times 4 is 20. If we made that completely algebraic, a over b times c over d, what we're going to end up with is a times c is. So again, exactly the same rules apply. We're just using algebra, and we looked at solving and kind of rearranging and substitution in the last one, so it's the same skills we're applying over and over again in different areas. Division on the other side, if you remember, we keep, change, flip. So let's look at that. We've got divided by, sorry. So in this problem, this is going to look fairly complicated. But in fact, if we know how to divide a fraction by keeping this one, changing this one to and flipping this one, all I'm doing now is times and across. So v times 5 is, and 2 times 3 is 3v is 6v. Now 6, 18, 15 and 5 only have a common factor of 1, so I'm not going to be able to simplify this in any way. So again, exactly the same skills that you already know, but just applying them to algebraic fractions. So there's no new knowledge there, it's just applying the skills you already know. Manipulating algebra, you've learned before. Dividing fractions, you've learned before. Putting the two together, it's just relying on them same skills that you've had and them same skills that you've built previously and just applying them into this. Finally, simplifying. So this is where we want to take our last skill, and it comes up quite a lot, this, to simplify an answer at the end. Let's just say I had something simple. If we were asked to simplify this, what we're looking for is the the HS, the highest common factor of 18 and 30. Well, both of them are in the 6 times table, so we'll divide both parts by 6 to get 3 over 5. For algebra, it's exactly the same. We're just looking for common factors in the numerator and denominator, and then we're cancelling out. So if I had 33 a squared b over 44 a squared b. Right? What I'm going to have here is I'm looking for common factors throughout, so I've got to break it down. Is there a common factor in the numbers? Yes, there's 11, so I want to divide both sides by 11, and then there is a's in both to the magnitude of 2, so I want, and b's I've only got power 1, so I want to divide both sides by this. 33 divided by 11 is 3, a squared divided by and b over 44 divided by 11 is 4. A squared cancels this to a0, which doesn't exact, and b cancels that, so it's 3ab over 4. Now finally, we might get asked when we get into the kind of high level ones, is to simplify a quadratic algebraic fraction. So if we look at that, we're going to have something like x squared plus, and we're going to divide that by okay, and we might get asked to simplify this fraction fully. So what I'm looking for is a common factor between this and this. Now we think when we see a quadratic and we want a factor, we should be able to link that back to factorisation. So what we want is 2 brackets for each of these quadratics. Hopefully one of the brackets is the same on the top and bottom, create a common factor. We can cancel that out and it will simplify the equation. So to factorise this, I need 2 values that multiply to 4 and add to 5. So I know that's 4 and 1, so I'm going to have x plus 4 and x plus 1. And on the bottom I'm hoping for one of the same brackets with 2 values that multiply to 3 and add to 4. which is x plus 3 and x plus 1. I have a common factor between both. I cancel this out. So the simplified version of this is x plus 4 over x plus 3. Right, so fractions are going to come up in a lot more places. It's going to come up in similarity, in scale factor, in vectors. But remembering what they are, how to manipulate them, how to use them with algebra, how to use them on their own, is the skill that we want to look at. As long as you know your basics with numerical fractions, converting it over to any other area is exactly the same. So just remembering that it represents a division, it can be mixed or non-mixed, and with our 4 operations they apply to algebra in exactly the same way they apply to numerical values. So keeping that in mind, fractions are going to come up quite a lot in quite a lot of areas, and as long as you're confident with them, that skill alone is going to help you a lot more than any of the other, well, not any of the other skills, but it's going to be a really big tool for when you go into the GCSEs and the amount of questions that can come up in. What I'll do is I'll pop a slide on next with all the page numbers for the book you've got, and if not, go on to Corbett Maths, look up algebraic fractions and try the practice question area. It's full of things like this. It's got the answers on there, and if you're stuck with anything, just email it into your teacher or bring it to school when you're in during the week, and bring it up there and your teacher will be able to go through it. Okay, cheers guys, and I'll see you in a few weeks.